do beans for dinner, because if you're gassing, you're going to bed. And it's like, whatever, you don't want to be having beans for lunch and then be tooting. Or
So we talk a lot about sleep farting. Not me. I don't do that.
This is Hannah's biggest fear.
oh, well, then maybe you should not be doing the beans for dinner, especially if you've got a partner lurking around, because that might not be very good.
Or someone new that you're dating.
Oh my God. Welcome to Pelvic POV with your hosts and doctors of physical therapy, Amanda Neary and Hannah Meyer. Hey, pelvic freaks. Welcome back to another episode of Pelvic POV.
We're your freaks for us and we're freaks for your pelvis, baby.
And welcome to Pelvic POV, Sarah.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk about nutrition and pelvic floor and anything fun.
all the goods.
All the goods. We wanted to bring Sarah on specifically because she's awesome, but a nutritionist on because as pelvic floor PTs, we see a lot of patients where sometimes we'll hit a wall with them and it might be something nutrition related, or they might have a hormonal imbalance diagnosis and they come in. So we think this will be really beneficial for our listeners. So I'll formally introduce Sarah and then I'll just have you give a little background.
Sure.
Well. So Sarah is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, right? A board certified holistic health practitioner and a functional health expert with over a decade of experience. Sarah, can you give a little background on what got you into this field and kind of what inspired you to go this route?
Yeah. So I have been doing this work, for maybe 13 years now. Initially, what helped me kind of transition into the health space, I initially worked in the fashion industry.
Ooh.
And yes, it was.
I was going to say you're fit when you walked in. I was
like, girl,
she knows what she's doing.
Girl. Well, I am usually a skinny jean girl, but then everybody's influencing me to do the wide pants thing. So this is literally ground zero, my wide leg jeans. So
I love it. Dude, I heard skinny jeans are coming back though.
Well, thank the Lord, because
No,
I was when I wear long coats, I don't like how I just look big and baggy.
I got rid of all my skinny jeans.
You
I'm
did?
gonna have to repurchase.
I'm going to have to repurchase too.
See, I save all my shit. I'm like, I know this is going to come back.
It all recirculates.
It does. So yes, I worked in the fashion industry for 13 years. I modeled, and very bad industry. I don't recommend it just because it will create body image issues and eating disorders. And it's just not a very empowering industry that helps the people in it feel good about themselves. So I just kind of had a breaking point, transitioned into the health space, and then started off as a nutritionist. And then after I had 2 kiddos myself, had a whole slew of health issues crop up, autoimmunity, gut issues, hormonal issues, mold toxicity, a lot of issues. And then that kind of opened my eyes into deeper root cause healing. So then I even continued my education even further to become an FDN-P and essentially a functional health practitioner. And so, yeah, it's just been a fun series of events that has led me to do what I do. And if it wasn't for, my own healing journey, I probably wouldn't have been able to unearth half of the deeper information I've been able to share with patients at the different clinics that I work at. So yeah, it's been a long time coming, but I am living out my passion and very happy with what I do.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Wow. Learned so much about you.
Yeah.
Before you got here, Hannah was talking to me about what the difference is between nutrition and dietitian, and I didn't really have the answers. So background.
So I actually did go to school for dietetics at UIC. So I was on a trajectory to be a dietitian. And so there's some educational differences where dietitians, they will go on to do essentially residency or 6-month internship at a hospital or another practice. And I just personally wasn't very keen on what I was learning while I was in school for dietetics. It was all food pyramid and just conventional. And I am very personally rooted in holistic health and holistic medicine. So I went off a different path and just did additional continuing education on functional medicine, holistic nutrition, integrative nutrition. And so dietitians, their education is different than an FDN-P. They can essentially prescribe very detailed meal plans where I don't necessarily prescribe detailed meal plans. It's more so I will run functional labs and blood work and provide supplementation protocols. I do diet plans and meal plans, but it's more so about like the whole person. So combining nutrition and biochemistry and detox practices and lifestyle practices. So just they're kind of two totally different paths, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
I like the holistic approach.
Yeah.
I feel like pelvic floor PT is very similar in that sense.
Yes.
Like I actually had a PT reach out to me and was like, do you have a clinical practice notebook I can reference for how to treat each diagnosis? Like, you know how you are in an ortho PT, you have like a CPN for like, this is how you approach an ACL tear or a meniscus or something like that in the knee. And I was like, honestly, like, I don't really have that for you. I pretty much just treat exactly what I see, because if someone's coming in for stress incontinence, it's never just stress incontinence. It'll be like pelvic floor tightness and pelvic pain and then something else, or like prolapse, versus like someone else with stress incontinence could be coming in and they just have like straight weakness, and we're going to treat those patients completely differently. So we're looking at the whole person rather than like following this clinical practice notebook and like just following step by step down that road. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I also feel like by the time patients come to pelvic floor PT, we're not like the traditional thing you think of when you think of physical therapy. So a lot of these patients already think holistically about their bodies, and they're working on treating things in combination with other therapies.
Nice.
Which is why like a lot of our patients do actually already go to functional medicine, or they ask us about it a lot. So I think this is so aligned with what we do as pelvic floor PTs. And that's why I was so excited to bring you on.
I know it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Trying to get us together.
From when I was working like in more of an ortho setting, I started out doing like ortho and pelvic health combined. But the amount of collaboration I do in the pelvic health setting is like big difference, like so much more. It's crazy. Like we are collaborating with sex therapists, dietitians, nutritionists, like all the time. Because, for example, someone's coming in to see us for constipation, for example, like they've seen a ton of different doctors and they're just like, I don't know what's going on. And they've somehow found us on like, I don't know, Facebook or something like that. And then we're approaching it from like a functional perspective. But then I'm like, okay, I'm hitting a wall, because at some point it's like, how is your diet? And I can't give you tips for that. And we're going to have to collaborate with like someone like you in order to like figure that part out. And it's never just like one-sided. So.
Yeah. I feel like we probably get similar patient demographics, because my whole group of gals and dudes, they usually have come to me after they've gone to 10 different specialists or 10 different doctors and either just get put on prescriptions or don't get answers, or they just get a blanket diagnosis like IBS. So yeah, it's nice to be amongst women who get it and understand that like, okay, at some point you need to pull back the layers, dig a little bit deeper and really focus on the body as a whole system versus just like masking symptoms essentially.
Totally.
Yeah.
Just a little background for anyone listening. I met Sarah about 2 years ago, was it? We did the Nike panel.
Oh, it's been 2 years already?
There it is, baby.
Yep. There's the ambulance. It was before the Chicago Marathon. I think it was maybe 2 seasons ago.
Oh.
But it was 1 or 2 years ago.
Okay.
We did a panel with Nike where we were speaking about our different professions and how they played a role in women training for marathons. And I remember at that panel, I was just like, Sarah's so cool. And the way she talks about nutrition, like we have to do this now that I have a podcast.
Yeah.
I have to get her on.
I think you were the first guest we actually even thought of. to have
Really?
on. Yeah.
Oh, girl.
Yeah.
I'm so flattered.
It's just like
that makes my heart sing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we're excited that you're here.
So, we're so excited. But okay, should we kick things off?
Yeah, that kind of leads into like our first talking point of just the role of nutrition in pelvic health. And we already touched on it like a tad bit with like the constipation example.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's actually talk about conditions, constipation, bloating, IBS, because I get a ton of people with just straight IBS.
Do you?
IBS-C, yeah.
Ooh, girl, me too. So, I obviously view food as medicine. It can be extremely powerful, but it could also steer us in the wrong direction. So how I view nutrition is what you eat either keeps you in homeostasis, keeps you in balance. It either works against you and your goals, or it works for you and for your goals. So when it does come to certain conditions like constipation, bloating, IBS, it's really hard for me personally to give like blanket general nutrition guidance, because the root cause of a lot of these gut issues are so different per person. So I usually will like to categorize gut imbalances by gut types. So like bacterial overgrowth type, fungal overgrowth gut type, immune gut type, and really looking at like the deeper issues of why is the gut out of balance. And so usually that will bring in some form of functional medicine test. My favorite is a stool test. And so that helps you see exactly what is going on in your gut. And when I see that, then I can tailor a very curated nutrition plan. So for things like constipation, if you find that it is more of a motility issue, like where you eat and your food just feels like you're sitting there, I would say maybe look into your thyroid too, because that can slow down motility. But like quick things that can help elevate or eliminate that issue is if you find that you're eating, because you know how protein is just like trending like crazy now, where everybody's like, eat over 100 grams of protein. So that can cause constipation if you're not also pairing that high protein diet with a lot of fiber. So depending on your gut type, right? Adding more fiber to your diet could be extremely beneficial, just because it helps you have looser stools, more formed stools. It could really help alleviate constipation. But if you have something like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
I get patients with that too.
Do you?
I've actually had 2 in the past month. Past 2 months, yeah.
So for them, a high fiber diet isn't the best way to go. And that's why I'm like, nutrition is so nuanced. You can't just tell like everybody with constipation to add add fiber. Because for the folks that have SIBO or bacterial overgrowths or bacterial infections, adding more fiber is essentially like adding more fuel to the fire, where especially with SIBO, like certain fibers are called FODMAPs, they feed the bacteria that's growing in the small intestine. And then that will just cause more bloating, more constipation if they're prone to constipation, and just a whole slew of other gut symptoms. So for the SIBO gals, decrease your fiber. But for other folks that have constipation, you could be eating too much protein, you know? And like I always tell people try to get at least 90, but there's a lot of people that are getting like 150, 160 grams of protein. And then they're telling me, I feel so heavy, I can't use the bathroom. So it's just like dial back on that a little bit. Focus on more easily digestible foods, like more bone broth, more collagen, maybe more white fish and salmon versus like muscle meats and beef. And that can really kind of give your body a chance to work on re-regulating its motility, or just do a couple days of more like a plant-based style of eating and see if that helps you. But for a lot of people, it's like you want to actually find the root of these issues through understanding like exactly what is going on in your body.
That is so fascinating. And this is why I always encourage people, like if they have a trainer or someone that's giving them dietary advice, I'm like, no, you have to go to someone who knows their stuff. Because even as pelvic floor PTs, the very bare bones thing that they teach us in like pelvic health courses is that more fiber equals less constipation.
Yes. And I also want to talk about, the fiber topic. I always am referring out because once we get to the diet topic, I'm like, this is a little bit just out of my scope. Like I have that bare minimum, but I don't even feel comfortable like recommending this for you because I don't really have the proper education where you went to like school for it and you've been in this for 13 years, you said. But the different types of fiber. So there's 2 different types, right?
Soluble and insoluble.
Yes. Yeah. Soluble and insoluble fiber. And there's like the Sicilian husk, I've heard.
Ooh, girl, are we from Italy? The Sicilian husk.
I constantly say things incorrectly.
I also always
Psyllium husk?
I think so.
Sicilian husk. Sicilian husk. See, this is why I don't make these recommendations.
Sometimes I call it psyllium.
Psyllium.
I mean, tomato. I don't know. You know?
Okay. So
but I do know what you're talking about.
Can we talk the insoluble versus soluble? Because I feel like people just go in on fiber, but there's the 2 different types, right? Or does it matter that much? Or
So yes, there's 2 types of fiber, insoluble and soluble. So the insoluble fiber is the one that your body cannot digest and absorb. So that's what a lot of people will use to help move, feces through the bowel at a better rate. And so a lot of those types of fibers are going to be from beans, from nuts, from fruits like apples, from wheat bran. But I tell people, don't worry about getting too deep in the weeds with the type of fiber. Because there's also another type of fiber called resistant starch, and that also has good gut health benefits. It feeds your probiotics. It could also help you with blood sugar regulation. So I just tell people, just focus on across the board fiber rich foods, and that will either help you, or if you notice that when you are increasing your fiber-rich foods, that it is causing more constipation, more gas, more bloating, you got the bacterial gut type, and you got to try low FODMAP. I'm not saying it's going to be the cure-all, but if you do a low FODMAP diet for 2 weeks and you notice that you start to feel better, that could mean that you do have something like SIBO. Yeah.
Wait, what's the low FODMAP? I don't know that.
Yeah. So FODMAPs, they're a type of carbohydrate that ferment in the small intestine when you have SIBO. So a lot of foods that people love are high in them, like onion and garlic. Who doesn't cook with onion and garlic? Yeah.
Love that.
And asparagus is a super high one. Cruciferous veggies in high amounts are high FODMAP. So for folks that have SIBO, if they trial a low FODMAP diet for a couple of weeks and they notice that their symptoms start to minimize, that is a good sign that okay, I'm heading in the right direction. But diet alone does not alleviate those types of infections or imbalances. So the root cause of SIBO is usually some sort of bacterial overgrowth that you need to, from a supplemental protocol standpoint, go in, kill out, get rid of. And the diet is really just a complement to that to help with managing symptoms and making sure you don't have relapse. But for general fiber across the board, you want to do things like raspberries, because raspberries are one of the highest fiber fruits. You want to do beans if you can tolerate them. I always tell people, do beans for dinner, because if you're gassing, you're going to bed. It's whatever, you don't want to be having beans for lunch and then be eating. Or
So we talk a lot about sleep farting. Not me. I don't do that.
This is Hannah's biggest fear.
Well, then maybe you should not be doing the beans for dinner, especially if you've got a partner lurking around, because that might not be very good.
Or someone new that you're dating.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
Me and you immediately were like, beans for dinner?
Sleep farting.
Which he made me chilly the other night, and I was like, it's going to be fine. I'm not going to fart. And I did not fart in my sleep that I know of.
There you go. Did you go to the bathroom better the next day?
I did.
Because I always tell people too, when you're going to have the higher fiber foods, have them with your dinner so that they can do their job overnight and help you be more regular the next day. Because if you have your dinner and it's, steak and potatoes or chicken and spinach, and it's just generally low fiber, but very high protein, how do you think you're going to digest that all night? You're going to digest it, but you may not have the best poops the next day. So I always tell people also, if you have anything like constipation, have your higher front load your day with higher protein, and then have more of a plant-based dinner that's higher in fiber and easily digestible. And then that way, that also kind of helps you overnight get things moving.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm learning so much right now.
Yeah, I am. And what do you say, this is kind of on the topic, what do you say to the people that are just taking Metamucil or something, like a fiber supplement versus getting fiber through just what you said, beans.
Psyllium. I think that's how we pronounce it. Psyllium husk, right?
So.
Yeah. Psyllium husk is a really great option for constipation, where you could put it in your smoothies, you could put it in yogurt, you could put it in chia seed pudding. I'm obviously, if you don't need to take over-the-counter things like Metamucil, I have people also doing high doses of Miralax, and that's also pretty bad because that just brings more water to the bowels. It doesn't get to the root cause. So I'm all about
it's like a Band-Aid.
Exactly. I'm all about let's be a detective. Let's put our little glasses on. Let's see what is causing these symptoms so that we're not just masking them. We're actually truly eliminating them. So I say ditch the Metamucil, ditch the Miralax, try either increasing fiber. If it bothers you, try low FODMAP, and Google it for any listeners that are like, what's FODMAP? Just do Google low FODMAP diet and you'll find all sorts of resources. More importantly, get to the root cause. Do a stool test. I am a freak for analyzing people's poop.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
I love
The stool test.
How do you do a stool test? Like, do you, okay, go
let
for
me
it.
tell you.
Oh my God.
Did you?
Yeah, at Green Circle.
Oh, did you? The GI map?
Yes.
Okay, very nice.
I did the comprehensive one.
So my favorite stool test is the GI map, and it just gives you all this amazing information about your entire microbiome and your intestinal health and your colon health. And it's not a fun test because essentially you need to poop in a hot dog container and then
Poop in a hot dog container.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my gosh, I love
and then
that.
you have to scoop it out with a little scooper. Like you have to be strategic with the areas that you scoop. And then it's a little science experiment. You got to swirl it and twirl it in a little cylinder, ship it off. But then I get all this really great information afterwards that shows us if you have any, serious foodborne infections like E. coli or Salmonella. It screens for a really common infection, H. pylori. It gives us, most importantly, a overview of your probiotics. So what each level is of your probiotics. So if you're depleted in some or overgrown in some, it tells you exactly what bacterial infections you have. It tells you if there's any parasites, fungus, worms. It tells you if there's inflammation in your, anything you could think of.
I feel like physicians don't do this.
No, it's more functional.
It's functional.
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like usually I get people that come in and they're like, yeah, I've had like 6 colonoscopies or something crazy. And like, that's it.
Yeah,
and they're like, there's nothing every single time.
Yeah.
But
same.
Stool tests.
Yeah. And the type of stool test that conventional medicine doctors prescribe is typically to either scan for the major and foodborne illnesses or infections or H. pylori or specific protocytes or worms. And that's it. And again, it's just about each practitioner's trajectory of education. And so, in functional medicine, the biggest thing is how can we uncover the why behind everything that's going on in the body versus just treating the what? So, we want to see why is there constipation? Why is there IBS? Because again, IBS, as you know, is just a blanket term for all these different symptoms. And doctors are either like, well, let's just rule out colon cancer, or here's an inflammation suppressor or steroids or whatever, just to manage the symptoms, but never any guidance on here's how you get rid of it. So that's why I love the stool test.
That's where the frustration comes from, though.
Oh,
for sure.
100%.
Which, it's still good to check, make sure you don't have colon cancer.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But then, like what you said, it's like a Band-Aid. And this is when you want to reach out to these other providers to get extra help, because people come to us and they're just so frustrated because they're like, I just don't trust my doctor. Like, they're not listening to me. But it's like, I feel like they're playing their role, but then they need to refer out.
Yeah.
I found, so I had like an arm rash when I was like seeing functional med, and it wouldn't go away. It was like right in my elbow.
Okay.
And I was having like some hormonal symptoms at that time. So the stool test was recommended for me. And in the test, they found salmonella.
Yeah.
And then we treated that, and my rash was gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, I never would have known I had salmonella.
You could have so many things that you have no idea. I mean, these things just go like no symptoms, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A lot of gut imbalances are asymptomatic from a gut standpoint, because I have clients all the time that I suggest, I tell them, I think it might be beneficial to do a stool test. And they tell me, well, I don't have any gut issues. But if you have things like brain fog, anxiety, depression, anything cognitive, or any skin concerns or hormonal concerns, or you get sick a lot, I mean, there's a laundry list of other systems in the body that seem unrelated to the gut that are caused by the gut.
Okay, this is good that you mentioned this, because this was like a question later on that we had got from a listener that was like, how do you tell if you don't have good gut health? Like, how can you tell?
Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean,
skin was one of the things you said, right?
Skin. Yeah. So the gut is essentially like the epicenter of how your body regulates itself, because 70% of your immune function is in the gut. Neurotransmitters like serotonin are produced in the gut. I mean, the gut is literally the epicenter of where everything goes down. So symptoms that may seem unrelated when it comes to skin, any sort of acne or even hormonal breakouts. And I'll even say the gut could be the root to hormone imbalances. A lot of people think, well, I think my root cause is my hormones. And I say, no, sister, your hormones are literally messages that your glands send to other parts of your body. And so if you're, going to shoot people say that term, shoot the messenger, right? Or don't shoot the, what was the term?
Don't shoot the
Don't kill the messenger.
Don't kill the mailman or something.
Don't kill them. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't
Yeah,
kill the messenger.
but truly though, you want to shoot the messenger because it's the messenger that's delivering something either effectively or not effectively, right? So
Not doing his job
yeah,
right.
not doing his job.
Not the mailman.
Yeah, not the mailman. Hormones are messages that the glands send throughout the body. And so you do want to shoot the messenger because it's the messenger that is screwing up somehow, right? It's not just the mail that is causing the problem, or like if you don't get a piece of mail on time, you're not gonna be like, oh, that piece of mail. You'll be like, oh, that postman, right?
Yeah.
So the messenger in a lot
always
of
a
cases,
man.
yeah, it is. Okay. But in a lot of cases, even hormonal imbalances will stem from the gut. So, when it comes to brain fog, headaches, anxiety, that's a big thing that I see that's correlated to gut imbalances that a lot of people will push back on doing a stool test for because they don't think they have gut issues. But then, for example, I get a lot of clients that have high anti-gliadin, which is essentially a sensitivity to gluten, and it shows up on the stool test. And that gives them that data point and motivation. Simple shift, just go gluten-free, simple. And it's like a night and day difference when people do that. Their brain fog and anxiety just goes away. But if they didn't do the stool test, we could have gone through months and months of experimenting with all sorts of different types of therapeutic diets when right away you could just see exactly what you need to do.
The evidence is there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Just got to poop in a hot dog container.
poop in that hot dog container. I always say, scoop that poop and you will know what's going on. And then skin concerns also. A lot of rashes and itchiness and acne I see stem from candida overgrowth. So that's another big gut offender that causes a lot of, breakouts and itchiness.
And you can see that in stool tests too.
Oh yeah. You could see if you have
I probably got
candida. There's a few other fungal overgrowth markers in there as well. But what I will say about candida and parasites that they are notorious for being skipped on stool tests, just because it also kind of depends on like the area of the stool you scoop. So you want to, sometimes it may not show up on a stool test, but then I also run another lab called the NutriVal that has an organic acids profile. And that one also gives us clues into gut function. And there's some candida or fungal overgrowth markers on there as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can assess gut function. You don't have to poop in a hot dog container, but it is the most effective way to do it for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But
That's not correlated to like yeast infections, is it?
oh, it sure is.
Oh, it is. So like if you get chronic yeast infections,
Oh, yes.
I think I need a poop in a hot dog container,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, it might be worth it.
Yeah, send that in. Send that in. Yeah. Yeah. So, if you think you might have candida or fungal overgrowth issues, the biggest red flags are recurrent yeast infections or even UTIs or rashes or itchy scalp or dandruff, or brain fog is a big one. A lot of brain fog, a lot of fatigue, weight loss resistance or weight gain, sleep issues. I mean, there could be a lot of things that stem just from fungal overgrowth that
Everyone's missing.
everybody's missing. Yeah.
And they're just not tying it in.
Yeah. They're
I
not
like
tying
what you
it in.
said, food is medicine. It's literally.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so nuanced, because foods that can make you feel fantastic may make you feel just crummy just based on the status of your microbiome and your immune system and just the terrain of your body as a whole. So that's why, when I have a love-hate relationship with social media, because I want to share information, but then I am always in my head about sharing like blanket statements, because I just know that I'm like, I can't share this blanket statement because I know somebody here is going to have this issue and then they're going to try it and it's not going to work and then they're going to come for me. So
It's just the struggle. We feel
Yeah.
that.
We feel that same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So nutrition is just a very, very individualized approach to health. But of course, I mean, it's common sense, people. Like, cut out the processed junk. Don't have a lot of soda. Don't have a lot of alcohol. Try to just make meals as much as you can at home. Eat produce and high quality animal proteins. And I am a raw dairy lover. I know that's controversial, but heck, I will say it. Whole Foods sells raw cheese, and so does Mariano's, and so does Trader Joe's. So
I love cheese.
Yeah.
Do you like whole milk or like 2% milk, or do you go like?
Well, I used to, I haven't drank milk, straight up milk in years, but then because of the stress of life, I needed more caffeine since we moved back downtown, and I've gotten this cappuccino kick, and now I'm drinking milk left and right.
I'm on a flat white kick.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I convinced my mother to get me a cappuccino maker for Christmas, so I've been making that shit every day. I use whole milk, and I add in heavy cream.
Okay.
So it's like the fattiest fatness, but
yeah.
it
I feel
also
like there's a fear around milk. There's a huge fear.
I've been on whole milk for like 2 years now. I love it.
I'm a whole milk girly. I occasionally go oat because I like how it tastes in coffee.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid of milk.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah. I always say though, since we're not on social media, I'm not going to get censored, I suppose. But I say if you're going to do milk, try to do some raw milk if you can, and just source it from a very high quality farm, just because it just maintains its integrity and the enzymes aren't degraded. But even just organic grass-fed milk or the A2 type of milk. So there's different types of milk protein. So A2 proteins are a lot more easily digestible for folks that have dairy sensitivities. Do that and you'll be fine. But again, it's nuanced. There's a lot of people that they have an inflammatory or an immune response when they consume cow's milk. So they fare a lot better when they stick with like goat's milk or sheep's cheese or just being dairy free.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Totally.
Yeah. But I don't think any one food is good or bad. They all have a place. It's just how do they interact with the terrain of your body.
Yeah.
But of course, I don't think ultra processed foods are healthy. It's just the common sense stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to healing the body, you want to test, you don't want to guess. And then you'll know exactly what type of nutrition plan will benefit you the most.
Yeah. So it's like your general, like this is your advice, but go do your stool test, go poop in your hot dog.
Yeah. And see what's up.
I love this approach. And I love like a lot of what you're saying about like there's not an inherently bad food, because we practice that way as PTs too, where there's these, PT personalities online that say like, this is always bad, never do this, this isn't beneficial. And I feel like that's the conversation in nutrition too sometimes online. And there's
100%.
all these evil foods that you can't touch, you can't look at. And I just love this approach of like, it's different for everyone and everyone's body needs a different plan of care.
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest thing is the anti-nutrients. It's like, all right, everybody, just get over these freaking anti-nutrients, because yes, there are things like oxalates or lectins or phytates that can cause a lot of agitation or irritation for a subset of certain patients. But for a whole other slew of people, they fare just fine eating foods high in phytates, lectins, or oxalates. So social media has caused such a sensational shift of a lot of people having analysis paralysis, where they just don't know what to eat, or they end up getting like eating disorders like orthorexia because they just get so fearful of foods. Like people are afraid of spinach because of the oxalates. And keep in mind, I do tell some people to minimize oxalates because, for example, if you do have fungal overgrowth or mycotoxin or mold exposure or mold illness, that itself produces more oxalates in your body. And so oxalates, just side tangent, can contribute to things like urinary infections or bladder irritation. Gosh, what's that interstitial
cystitis?
Yes,
Yeah.
There's like a few studies showing that oxalates can agitate that as well. So like, again, that's why I say like there's some folks where getting rid of certain healthy foods can help them, where others, they don't need to worry about it. But I don't think that there should be like a general, nobody should ever eat spinach. You're gonna screw yourself. I just think it's crazy. And it's just causing a lot of people to be fearful of these
Seriously.
foods.
Yeah. Low oxalate diet is actually a common one that's recommended for pelvic floor patients.
Oh, nice. Because of the
all the symptoms that you just mentioned.
Yeah. So there you go. Like if you do have an issue that benefits from, do it. But If you don't, like, there's no need to be afraid of these foods. I always tell people you want to view dietary changes as giving your body the space that it needs to heal. Because if you have an injury, like let's say you bust your knee and you typically do, Orange Theory or Barry's boot camp, you're not going to go straight back to that workout. You're going to take a break from what you do and then go into a rehab treatment. And then once you're balanced, you go back to doing the things you like to do. And I use that analogy for food, right? If you have an imbalance, you want to eliminate whatever trigger foods may be exacerbating the symptom and help your body just turn on its own healing mechanisms. And then when you feel better, you can reunite with those foods. It's not like a life sentence. And that's where a lot of people get tripped up because they get very resistant to diet changes because they think that it's a forever type of thing when it's not.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is so fascinating. I want to talk about, we've talked about a lot of different diets already, but the buzzword that I see a lot is the anti-inflammatory diet.
Yep.
Is that similar to low FODMAP? Is it its own thing? How do you frame
so
that?
the number one most studied anti-inflammatory diet is the Mediterranean diet. And for good reason, there's a lot of research behind it that it does lower inflammation. It helps with cardiovascular outcomes, just all sorts of positive health outcomes. And it's essentially, being plant forward, but also having grains and nuts and legumes and dairy in moderation, but then meat in moderation and more like seafood forward. Just think of like when you go to the Greek restaurant, it's like a bunch of veggies, a lot of seafood, same. And like the feta, I love it. But it's not that complicated, really, the anti-inflammatory diet. It's all rooted on eat whole foods, eliminate the processed foods, and then eat the foods that are highest as far as their antioxidant scale. So that's obviously going to be berries, spinach is on there, and like all different produce, fruits and veggies, beans. Again, some people can tolerate beans, some can't. Some can tolerate nuts, some can't. But I always say you can never go wrong with animal proteins, right? Like all the wild-caught fish and the organic poultry, wild-caught beef. So it does have a lot of benefits because a lot of the root cause to like musculoskeletal issues or structural issues can be chronic inflammation. Because when you have that chronic inflammation cascade, that inflammation can make its way into all different parts of the body, joints, muscles, tendons, skin, wherever it wants to burrow itself. So I would say that is a really good general place to start for physical or structural issues is get on a anti-inflammatory diet. And you don't have to overthink it. It's like eat whole foods. Don't be getting, the RX bars thinking that that's fruits and whatever. It's still dried fruits with 20 grams of sugar. I mean, that's also another thing that's going to mess with your inflammation is your blood sugar regulation. So if you're eating, even packaged foods that are like dried fruits or something that seems like it's whole, check that sugar content. I see this all the time clinically is people are saying like, well, I have healthy smoothies and I have, healthy bars and this and that. And then I kind of go over their food log and they're having, like 30 grams of sugar just in one meal. And that's just going to send them all up and down and all around town. And the more that your blood sugar is going up and down, that's going to drive up that inflammation because your body is like, what the heck are you doing in there? Like,
I need some advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I feel like you're just talking to me right now.
Yeah, Hannah and I have admitted we didn't do the best job of eating whole foods last year. My goal
literally
this year is
this
to
morning,
cook more.
bro. This morning, we were joking about it. We were just like, because I was like sick early this week, so I have a prednisone that I'm taking, and I was like, coffee and a prednisone, no food. Let's just get it. That's literally all I've done today. It's so bad, guys. Don't do that.
But what is the root cause to not cooking more? Busyness, right?
Busy. I literally am so busy.
And what you said about like analysis paralysis?
Yeah.
I do have that.
Yes.
I'm like, what the hell should I be
Because of what you
eating?
consume online?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm like, what am I supposed to cook?
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, because everything's poison. And it's like,
Red 40.
like the fear that people have over what to eat is keeping them stuck with their symptoms because your emotional state and your nervous system plays a big role in your healing trajectory. So if you are experiencing more joy in your life by dining out and having something indulgent or a treat from time to time because it brings you joy and it makes you feel more balanced, you'll probably heal at a quicker rate than the person that's literally frozen in fear, afraid to eat any type of food because they're just overanalyzing. And just that state of being, your body's going to be like, what? We don't have time to upregulate our immune system or deploy, neurochemicals or neurotransmitters or whatever needs to be around our body to bring balance back because the body thinks there's a threat from, just feeling fearful. So, but back to the busyness, like that's a number one thing I hear is that, well, I can't eat whole foods because I'm working all the time or I'm busy all the time. And there's hacks for that. Go to Whole Foods and get an organic rotisserie chicken, eat the legs and the thighs for dinner, and then shred the rest and repurpose it throughout the week. Like there's so many, little things that you can work on to make eating whole foods easier. You just have to be a little creative. And you also still need to make some sort of plan for yourself, right? A lot of people are like, I'm just so busy. And I tell them, well, you have priorities in your life and you dedicate time for those priorities. Like, for example, your work or your family or your social events, like you actually carve out time to see your friends and do all these other things. But a lot of people are so resistant to carve out 30 minutes just to write down like the meals that they want that week or to create like a menu plan. And I just tell people like, if you want to fix how you're eating, you gotta start prioritizing yourself and your health and what you're eating and just make the space. It doesn't have to be hours of meal prepping. It could just be 30 minutes on a Sunday, just like batch cooking some proteins or making some meatballs, throwing them in the freezer or like roasting some broccoli, having it there or, or the girl dinners. Are girl dinners still a trend?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I am nonstop creating plans utilizing girl dinner variations.
It's the best.
Like the adult Lunchables, I call them.
And it always involves olives for me.
I love olives.
Yeah, but there you go. Like you could create such easy girl dinners that are still based in whole food principles, like hard-boiled eggs, hummus, cucumbers, carrots, gluten-free Simple Mills crackers. They're processed, but still like whatever. You got to also pick your battles.
Yeah.
Right? Like 80-20 rule, a lot of people like to follow. And also nobody eats perfectly 100% of the time. That's just nearly impossible. And so then to have that pressure on yourself too, then that just drives you deeper into analysis paralysis or just like, F it, I'm just not even gonna try.
Yeah.
Dang.
Oh, this is so cool. I'm like everything you're saying. I'm like, this is so useful for us and everyone that listens to our podcast.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Because I'm like chronically, what's your thoughts on not eating breakfast? Because I chronically don't eat breakfast and I know it's bad.
Well, are you hungry?
Not really when I wake up. Like I really don't get hungry until lunch, but I wonder if like I started eating breakfast, if it would like regulate. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder if it would give me more energy. I don't know.
Do you have energy issues?
No, I'm like a bunny rabbit.
Okay, girl. Well, I mean, everybody's different. I always say, don't eat until you're truly hungry. But there are some people, like if you just at one point pushed your hunger cues until later in the day, your body could just be set in a pattern where it just naturally doesn't get hungry until lunchtime.
Okay.
Especially, do you have coffee in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that's, also going to suppress your appetite a little bit too. But I typically will tell gals, women specifically, if you're still menstruating and if you are busy and you're working and you're on the go, I say it's smarter to front load your day with more food and have a very light dinner or do more of like a reverse intermittent fast. Just because there's something called the cortisol awakening response that after 2 or 3 hours after you wake up, you want your cortisol to start to go down a little bit. And so if you don't eat food and then you're drinking coffee, your body is going to just be running on cortisol all morning, essentially. And so your cortisol will stay elevated throughout the day. And then that also in turn starts to increase your blood sugar. So then your blood sugar starts to increase. So I actually have a lot of clients that have insulin resistance or PCOS or, even pre-diabetes. And they're like, I don't know why I do intermittent fasting. I don't eat until 1 or 2. And I tell them like, well, that's just making you further into metabolic distress because the body wants safety signals in the morning, especially for like thyroid function, hormone function, energy production. from like ancient principles, one of the number one safety signals that the body gets is food, like knowing that you have food in your system. So if you are pushing the limits and you're not giving yourself food within those morning hours, the body's going to be like, oh, well, we might as well just produce more of our own adrenaline and cortisol to try to get us by. And then over time, not right away, but over time, that could potentially suppress thyroid hormone, cause blood sugar dysregulation issues, or, hormonal irregularities. But that's why a lot of people like these newer books, like, have you heard Fast Like a Girl, where it's,
Yes, I have.
yeah, Fast Like a Girl, where there's science behind certain times of your cycle where you can experience like a prolonged, 16-hour intermittent fast, and it's not going to potentially, negatively impact your hormone levels or things like that. But the people that I work with, a lot of my clients either have autoimmunity, gut issues, fatigue, hormonal issues, just like their body is just depleted, because also modern day, like we're always multitasking. We're thinking about 20 million different things. We're just always on the go, and our body just innately is just trying to constantly like readapt itself. So if you find that you personally are coming from like a depleted state, then I would say don't skip breakfast, because you need that safety signal for the body to have some form of balance that it can work with to try to like bring back our thyroid and metabolism and energy and whatnot. So that's my long-winded answer.
Yeah. No, I think I want to try like for an extended time eating breakfast in the morning and just see how I change throughout.
Well, you know what you could do? And this is what I tell a lot of people that they're like, I'm just not hungry. I would start by just adding some protein powder to your coffee. But it can't be any type of protein powder, because a lot of protein powder tastes like crap, like just like chalky wool. So my two favorite protein powders, one is from this brand called Equip. It's EQUIP. They have prime protein. I'm obsessed with it. And I have pretty much tried every single type of protein out there. And it's very clean ingredients. It's just like chocolate, beef isolate protein, and stevia. Some people don't like stevia, but for most people, you can't really even tell that it tastes like stevia. But I use the chocolate one, and I put it in my morning matcha every morning, and it literally tastes like I'm drinking hot chocolate. And I tried it in coffee too. Same. Hot chocolate every morning.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
It's delicious. It's delicious.
Gonna order that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And so what I do is like I'll break my cup up into two smaller cups. So I do like half a scoop in each cup. So then right away in your morning, you have 20 grams of protein just from your coffee. So I would start there, just again to like give your body those safety signals of like, okay, we've got some nutrients, we've got protein, the building blocks of life. Like, let's see what's going on. And then from there, you can take it just another like small step further. Do you like eggs?
Yeah.
Just do like,
well, sometimes I get the egg ick, but right now I'm getting out of it. Like today, actually, I was like craving eggs again.
Okay.
So I think I might go back.
Yeah. You could always do something like very small, just like a hard-boiled egg and a piece of cheese, or just like
eggs.
Just like an avocado with salsa. Just something small, just to start stoking the metabolism again, like your digestive fire. Yeah. And then people think that they have to go from one extreme to another. And I say, no, just make like small little changes, protein in your coffee first for a couple of weeks. And then you'll notice as you start to eat a little bit that eventually like you'll start waking up hungrier. Yeah. And then you can start shifting your eating pattern
versus
early.
having a big late dinner. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that. You know what I did for a week? Because actually a patient recommended me to try this, so I did. But using the muffin tins and then doing like the egg muffins. Oh, yes. And you have like 12. You can have like meal 2 prep per day. Yeah. And then that's like breakfast. You can do like goat cheese, spinach, tomatoes in it. And that's like a quick thing. And I did that for 1 week and I actually really liked it. So now that I'm out of my egg
you could try it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, question for women specifically with breakfast. I've heard from multiple people that we're supposed to have more like fat in the morning. Is that true from your standpoint?
So my whole spiel is protein, fiber, a little bit of fat in the morning is okay. But if your liver is really stressed out and you have like liver detoxing issues, fat in the morning might not be the biggest thing for you. So again, it's like nutrition.
Individualized.
Yeah, because I do have a lot of like hormonal patients that they are having like liver detox issues, or they have estrogen dominance due to gut issues that impact how the liver detoxes. So for them, I would say do lower fat. But if you feel like you're in your prime and you've got no issues, there's nothing wrong with fat, especially like the people that put the MCT oil in their coffee. It just helps with like a more sustained caffeine release, more stabilized blood sugar levels. But my whole spiel is, and I think this can benefit everybody, is try to have a lower carb and higher fat fiber and protein breakfast, and try to make it savory versus sweet, because it also comes down to like a blood sugar regulation perspective. Because if you think about it, you're fasting all overnight. Once you get into that like 12-hour mark, you're starting to burn more fat for fuel versus glucose. So if you start your day with having like a big bowl of oats, even though there's some protein in there, the ratio of carbs to protein can still be skewed like more carb heavier versus protein. You're still going to get that pretty sizable blood sugar spike. And if again, you're coming from a state of depletion or stress or burnout or, chronic symptoms or whatever it may be, your body may have a harder time than re-regulating your blood sugar ebbs and flows. So if you have a big blood sugar spike in the morning and then it crashes because you don't have a good handle on your blood sugar regulation, that's going to cause you to crave more carbs later in the day, crave more food, and it's just going to change like your hunger and fullness cues too. And your energy levels. So I think that's the biggest thing that you could do for breakfast is trend more towards savory and then like higher protein, higher fiber. So that could be, eggs and veggies. That could be homemade turkey sausages with like a veggie hash. It could be chia seed pudding with like coconut milk and then monk fruit sweetener. That's like a 0 sugar sweetener.
I tried that.
Have you tried that?
Yeah,
do you like it?
I did like it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because there's some people where they're like, I just don't like savory breakfast foods. I want something sweet. So that's usually my option for the sweet lovers, or just like a very low sugar, high protein, high fiber smoothie. But that's my thing, is keep carb consumption, like complex carbs, like oats, quinoa, potatoes, things like that, till lunchtime or later. Usually midday is best. And then for people that have sleep issues, you don't want to have like a very high carb dinner, because then that could cause you to have awakenings overnight due to blood sugar ebbs and flows. But yeah, that's what I say. High protein, high fiber is the way to go.
Nice.
That's a good tip too. When you said like waking up overnight, because I have patients that struggle with like nocturia and are like waking up all the time to go pee.
Oh.
And we address it from pelvic floor standpoint, and it gets them down to maybe like waking up one time per night. But I wonder if like seeing a nutritionist or something could also.
Insulin resistance could cause that too. A lot of urination in the middle of the night. And again, blood sugar regulation, because they're not regulating, how they're responding to carb-rich foods. Or mold illness, but that's just like a whole other Pandora's box.
Yeah. It's like there's behavioral components, there's your food can impact it. There's so much. Wow.
Yeah. So from a hormonal standpoint, we see a lot of patients who come in with diagnoses of like PCOS or perimenopause patients. And I just want to make sure we touched on like anything you'd consider with those. So I don't know if you have anything to add for that kind of population too.
Yeah. So PCOS, there's different types of PCOS. Some are more insulin resistant driven. So for that subset, I would say, really working on your blood sugar regulation is key. But, for hormone balance across the board, the number one biggest thing I see is just not eating enough calories. A lot of women are just chronically under eating. Like I would even call 1,600 calories a day as under eating if you're doing it consistently and chronically. Because there's a lot of people that they've just been on a quest for weight loss forever, that they just are getting used to eating in a big deficit and they just stay that way. And that's going to negatively impact how your hormones are synthesized, metabolized, produced, all of that. So I always tell people, check what you're eating and make sure you're eating enough, because that is a big one.
I need to hear that too.
Yeah. So another one is a lot of people, especially for hormones or just in general, people are afraid to eat cholesterol because they think cholesterol-rich foods like eggs, fattier pieces of meat, dairy, shellfish, shrimp, they're afraid to eat cholesterol-rich foods because they think, for example, the cholesterol in eggs increases blood serum cholesterol. But now there's all these studies kind of squashing that myth, saying that no, eggs are safe to eat. They're not going to increase your cholesterol levels. But cholesterol for hormones, cholesterol is actually the precursor to hormones. And so all these gals that are afraid of cholesterol are not supporting their hormones essentially, because cholesterol helps produce all of our steroid hormones. So progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, all those types of hormones. They also help support hormone synthesis, so how the hormones are created. And then, cholesterol also helps maintain the integrity of our cell membrane structure so that our cells can receive the signals from our hormones, since our hormones are simply just messages that our body creates to communicate with the intricate network that our hormones make up, right? Because our hormones aren't just about getting pregnant. or our monthly cycle, they also dictate our mood, our energy, our sleep, our libido, our immune function, just like so much. And so cholesterol helps essentially support every process that happens with how the body makes hormones, metabolizes them, synthesizes them. So don't be afraid of cholesterol, gals. Eat some eggs, eat some grass-fed steak, eat some shrimp and some shellfish, like
Oysters.
We
love oysters.
Ooh, yes.
I'm getting an oyster tattoo.
Yeah.
You are?
We're-
Nice.
We love oysters.
You're going to have to share the
oysters.
tattoo parlor you go to because
we got you. We got you.
Yeah.
I have a couple.
Okay. I'm now officially want my first tattoo. My husband wants to get like a whole sleeve. I'm like, all right, hold on there. Just start with one and then we will see.
Are you into fine line? Like this, like the very delicate.
this
I do
kind of
like the
style?
delicate.
Okay, cool.
Yes, I do.
We got you.
like-
We
yeah.
got you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a couple.
And we are tattoo virgins. So we're ready to break our
Oh
cherries.
my God, we'll chat about it. Don't
Yeah,
worry. We've
okay.
actually been talking tattoos, but I'm getting one like next week, I think, by the way.
Did you submit it?
Not yet. Not for, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry.
But yes, so, cholesterol. And then for menopause and perimenopause, they have exploded in more awareness this past year just because of all the books that have been out from different celebrities and whatnot. And for menopause, I would say for that, it's protein, just because a lot of menopausal women just aren't eating enough. They're eating like 40 grams a day. So you don't want to go gangbusters and all of a sudden get up to like 150 per day, because then you could end up being constipated or having digestive issues. But you do want to make it a priority, just because more protein is also going to help you, again, stabilize the foundations, your blood sugar, your muscle recovery. And also another thing you want to do when you're menopausal or going through menopause is weightlifting, because that's going to help any sort of bone loss or muscle mass loss. And as you age, that's the most important thing. But for PCOS, the biggest thing that I see helps is like reining in your blood sugar, really working on those levels, being aware of how many carbs you're having per day. And again, you don't want to go keto. You don't want to go really low carb, because you need carbs in your diet. You just want to assess and be like, okay, am I eating chips as my snack every day? And then am I having like popcorn after my dinner? And a lot of people don't realize it until you actually start writing down what you're eating, the extent of what you're eating. throughout the day. And it
that's
can
like
be
when we
very
do bladder
eye-opening.
diaries or bowel
Okay.
diaries. And like,
Okay.
we're just like, just write it down and focus like one full day.
Yep.
And then you're going to be like,
Yeah.
and then just bringing that awareness to what you're eating, or just like a
Yeah.
bladder or bowel diary, can make a huge difference too.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of, like tracking calories or macros or anything like that, because some people can find it useful. And I do have clients that like using it, and I'm all for that. But for a lot of people, it again, can be more tedious. It can cause more frustration. And diet is also about how you behave around food and how you relate to food and your emotions, like your emotional connection to food. So anything that can also help your headspace remain positive, feeling like you're in control, feeling like you're motivated, is also going to help you with your dietary goals. So I say, get like your iPhone notes app out and just start writing, just list out what you ate. I say do the date and then do BLD, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then just write down 2 eggs and a chicken sausage, a salad with shrimp. And then like, it'll at least jog your memory so that you know what you had that week. And then you can kind of assess. And a lot of people will be like, oh shit, I drank 4 times this week. I didn't even realize, right? And it just helps you make way more strategic, subtle little shifts with your diet.
Love that, because I am so not counting my calories ever again.
Yeah.
No. What was that app called?
My Fitness Pal.
My
Yes.
Fitness Pal.
Not the
Yes.
one.
Everyone's been there, man.
Everyone's been there through that phase.
You know what's helped me a lot with making my grocery list?
What?
Chat GPT. I'm not even kidding.
So what prompts do you use?
You can literally be like super specific. Like you can put in like a recipe, and they'll like pull it from online. You can be like, give me a simple grocery list for Whole Foods under this budget and blah, blah, blah. And it'll literally give you like an exact grocery list. And you could even be like, I want to have like a turkey rice dinner for one night and this and this. And you can be really general and it'll get specific for you.
Okay.
You can give it a budget. You can give it a grocery store, and it'll
Damn.
lay it all out.
Okay, well, I'm going to start using that.
It's so nice.
Yeah, because I It's me and 3 dudes, my husband and my 2 kids. But my 4-year-old already eats like a teenager. He eats from the moment I pick him up from school at 3:30 up until 8 p.m. Always just, I'm still hungry. I'm still hungry. And I'm like losing it trying to figure out what to feed this kid. So I'm going to have to use ChatGPT to be like, what are some ideas for a hungry toddler so that I'm not just constantly being a line chef?
Oh, it helps so much. It helps so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to use that tip.
Yeah. I wrote down a note because you said that I don't know anything about this, so I wanted you to expand on it. You said that you had mold toxicity.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know anything about that.
Yes. Well, so mold is an organism that's just around everywhere, right? Water damage can cause different types of mycotoxins to produce. It's like a whole other root cause issue, especially in the functional medicine space. A lot of practitioners are now testing for mold illness or just mycotoxin illness. It's essentially like a urine test that will tell you different mycotoxin levels. And mycotoxins are essentially the toxins that mold spores release into the air. So let's say you lived somewhere that had a flood in the basement and it wasn't managed correctly, or the water was left there for a while and then mold starts growing either on like the wooden beams or somewhere. There's different types of like mold species. Black mold is usually the most harmful, but there's all sorts of mold species that can cause a lot of like hidden mystery symptoms in a lot of people. And especially estrogen dominance. There's certain like mycotoxins that can bind to estrogen receptors in the body and then cause like an overabundance of estrogen in the body. And so it is a big root cause, like hidden infection or hidden invader that I like to test for, because it can contribute to a lot of issues like fatigue, having the body produce a lot of like oxalates. That could be a thing that it creates, and it can just cause a lot of issues. It compromises the immunity in your body, so you can get sick more frequently, or that just then opens the door for like gut infections or co-infections to happen. It's not a fun thing. Everybody approaches mycotoxin and mold illness differently. But for me, how it manifested, we, left the city during COVID and we got a rental house in Naperville, and that rental house had mold under the sink. And the reason why I looked into it is because I just started getting sick 2 or 3 months after living in that house. I started having neurological symptoms. I couldn't see straight. Everything, like straight lines were squiggly. I was essentially bedridden, couldn't even get up. I had SIBO, candida, like every single possible gut issue you could think of. I did a hormonal Dutch test on myself and all my hormone levels were menopausal levels. And I was literally 3 months postpartum. Just everything was a mess. And so I was like, I'm healthy and I live a healthy life. There must be something that has infiltrated the body. So I had a mold inspector come out. They did the test, found it in the sink. And then of course, landlords like to like poo-poo any sort of mold growth. They just don't have an understanding of how it impacts the health in the body. So then I had to do a whole mold protocol as part of my own healing journey, but it helped tremendously. So I would say, if you do have any sort of mystery symptoms or chronic symptoms or SIBO that you get rid of, but then it comes back and it just keeps coming back, or you have like elevated candida or a lot of like fungal overgrowth issues, I would look into mold as a potential root cause to some of those issues. Mm-hmm.
There's so many. This is going to be such a good episode for people to reference.
It's a good one. Because you mentioned you being postpartum, that was kind of where I wanted to go next. Because that is obviously a large population that we treat at the Pelvic Institute.
Yes.
What are your main things that you're looking for? Recommendations for these patients?
Yeah, I love all my postpartum clients. I have a ton of postpartum gals that I work with. So the biggest thing, like your first couple months postpartum, you really want to focus on easily digestible foods, warming foods, broths, proteins, things that just like bring warmth to the body and nourish the body, because, you're healing the platter-sized plate of a wound that was left from your placenta coming out, and just, everything else that's going on inside as you're recovering. But it's specific nutrients, I see a lot of nutrient deficiencies in the form of iodine is a big one, omega-3s, because the babies, especially if you're breastfeeding, they just like suck those fatty acids from your brain. So that's what causes a lot of postpartum women to have like brain fog and just memory issues and forgetfulness and just like general tiredness, is because they've just sucked the life out of your brain. And then, like all the minerals get depleted, like magnesium, calcium, a lot of the B vitamins get depleted. You essentially just come out of pregnancy depleted unless you were really dialed in with your nutrition. And another thing I'll say about prenatal vitamins is that most of them are just like crap, especially the synthetic ones, because you're just taking like synthetic vitamins that your body can even absorb easily. And then if you also have gut imbalances, half the supplements you take, you're only absorbing like 10% of it, So people like to say you are what you eat, but it truly is, you are what you absorb and digest, because you could eat things and take things, but if the foundations of your gut isn't in place, like it's not going to do anything for you. So it's all about like replenishment. I'm a huge fan of placenta encapsulation.
Ooh.
I'm so wanting to do that.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
If I ever have a baby.
I did that after my first pregnancy, and it was a night and day difference of how I felt when I took them. My mood was more stabilized. My energy was better. I had way less postpartum hair shedding. My second pregnancy, I ordered them, but then the doula lost them in the mail, and I was devastated. I cried.
I would have too.
Yeah, because I was like, no. And my husband's like, and that's what caused your health problems. I'm like, I don't think it was just me not taking my placenta pills.
Yeah. How do you get that or request it?
Doulas do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have to have a doula in order to get it?
There's like placenta encapsulation specialists that you can contact. And
what if you just like you're delivering at the hospital, like Northwestern Prentice or something?
Oh, girl, they're gonna try to just take that from you. They're not gonna do anything.
If you have a doula that like advocates for you, but if you like ask and you're like, I want my placenta.
If you put in your birth plan saying like, I'm going to encapsulate my placenta, I'm keeping my placenta, you just have to sign a waiver and just be very adamant about it.
Okay.
And then you do have to have the placenta encapsulator come and pick it up in the cooler and take it.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a process.
Cool. It's good to know. Did you deliver at a hospital or did you do like a birth center?
First pregnancy, I delivered at UIC, and it was traumatic, very traumatic. My child did not respond well to the Pitocin that they just forced upon me because they couldn't monitor my contractions.
Yeah.
So he was in the NICU for 4 days. So that was very traumatic for me because my first 4 days postpartum, I was sleeping in a rocking chair in like the ice or in the NICU at UIC. Yeah. And they were trying to act like my son was dying when he was not. There was nothing ever wrong with him. He just like was breathing erratically from the Pitocin, and they just turned it into a whole thing. It was very bad. So then that led me to be like, nope, I'm doing the natural birth next time. I actually went as far into getting certified to be a hypnotherapy instructor. So I taught hypnotherapy for quite some time. I have a big passion for like the prenatal postpartum population. And then I did my second birth completely naturally. Nice. I went to a birth center in Oak Park, and it was great. I loved it. It was tough, but I loved the experience. Like it was the best birth. I had the best postpartum, like immediate postpartum recovery minus the placenta pills. It was only once I moved into that moldy house that I started getting the health issues.
Dang.
Yeah.
Did you have doula the first time?
No.
Okay.
The first time I went in blind.
Right.
I was just like, okay, whatever the doctors say. And now I'm like, no, not what the doctors say. Advocate for yourself. Don't get me started on this topic of hospitals and birth because they just try to like take it in, rush you, and bring in the next person. And so they'll just like, yes, they're just going to try to like pump you with Pitocin to like move things along. I don't think a lot of hospitals honor physiological birth. And so that's why I think natural birth is incredible. Birthing centers are incredible. Working with midwives, because they'll also advocate for you more, are incredible. But yeah, so placenta encapsulation is something really cool to do in the postpartum period. And then really just focusing on replenishing those specific deficiencies. So like the iodine, omega-3s, calcium, iron's a big one, the B vitamins. You just want to be extra intentional with your diet because you need to replenish yourself. And so I'll usually put a lot of my clients on beef liver pills postpartum because that is kind of similar to placenta encapsulation, like the nutrient profile that is in there.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. So beef liver pills I like using. I do a lot of like mineral balancing in the postpartum period, but it's really about just like coming back to the basics, but doing more warming foods like soups and stews and things that like calm the body and nourish the body, and a little bit more carbs than you typically would as well.
Cozier.
Yeah. Just cozy vibes.
It's a big life shift that just happened.
Oh yeah.
Just need all the cozy foods.
Yes. And like bone broth and all the broths.
I heard a lot about bone broth.
Yeah, bone broth is awesome, unless you have histamine issues. So if you ever drink bone broth and you get like facial flushing afterwards, that could be a sign that you may have a histamine issue, and then you don't want to do bone broth. But for everybody else, bone broth is awesome. Like especially
Go see a nutritionist, guys. Get your individualized assessment.
Yep. Yeah, but no, like for a lot of gut issues, I will have people do bone broth on an empty stomach and like first thing in the morning, and it helps a lot with constipation. Another thing that helps in the morning with constipation, just going back to that, is doing a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and warm lemon water before coffee or food, because that can help the liver excrete more bile, which then kind of like nudges the colon along to release itself. So that's another tip too.
This is great.
This is great.
I'm going to reference this all the time. You have no idea.
Yeah. Patients are going to ask me things, and I'm going to say, go start by listening to our podcast episode, and then go see Sarah.
We have some listener questions and that we wrote down, and we were like, here, choose your favorite ones and we'll chat about them. But I have a question because you brought up soda. What is your thought on like the poppy sodas and the Ollipops and the prebiotic sodas? Do you like them?
I do.
Okay, me too.
I
I'm
like
obsessed.
them.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I'm team poppy only because it has less carbs and sugar than the Ollipop.
Okay.
But that's just me personally, because I just feel better when I don't have as much carbs and sugar throughout the day. But I think they're a great alternative. Like I actually turn a lot of clients onto them that do drink like Diet Coke or sodas. That's like their transition drink. And then eventually they're okay with doing more like liquid drops or electrolyte blends or things like that. But I think they're great. I know that they get a lot of bad rap. They're like, oh, they don't do what they're claimed. And it's like, well, I don't think people are picking them up thinking like, oh, this is going to heal my gut. I can't wait. It's more so just like, okay, I want something that has flavor. That's just like a better option
Then soda.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay,
Totally.
cool.
Yeah.
I love them
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
always like a
Glad they're
treat for me.
approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's a treat for me. Sometimes I'm just like craving a poppy or something.
I know. Yeah. I know. My kids will have them from time to time too. They call them fizzies. They'll be like, are we going to get fizzies today?
That's so cute.
Yeah.
You know, in the UK, they call soda fizzy drink.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's really
Oh.
cute too.
My kids are like low key UK boys.
They're little British boys.
I love that. Cool.
Nice. Yeah.
Alright, cool. I'm glad
I
we
love it. Another one of our questions.
Yeah, let's chat them up.
What do you think is the most underrated food for women's health?
I'm going to say fermented foods. Yeah. Just because of, obviously how it helps the gut and it feeds the probiotics in there and they act as probiotics. If you're going to do something like sauerkraut or kimchi, I always recommend to get the brands that are in the refrigerated section versus the shelf, because those actually have like the live probiotics in them. So you're going to get your goods there. And I always tell people, give yourself a challenge and try to do a tablespoon of sauerkraut or kimchi a day, and your gut health can transform itself. And a really easy way to do that, I actually do scrambled eggs with sauerkraut. I love it. It's like a really interesting
Wait, that's a good
duo.
tip.
That sounds really good.
And then you could just like front load it and get it out of your day and not worry about it the rest of the day.
I'm going to do that because I like sauerkraut.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Shit. And then, when you have that balanced gut microbiome, that also helps your hormonal health, especially like estrogen, progesterone balance. But then when you have more fermented foods in your diet, it also helps your body increase its nutrient absorption. So you're able to take the nutrients from your food at a more easier rate if you have like more probiotics in your system as well. So I just think in general, not skimping on the fermented foods, and if you could tolerate dairy, kefir is another really great option. But my best go-tos are kimchi and sauerkraut and miso for like stir fries, and then kefir if you can tolerate it. The only folks that may not feel good if they do fermented foods is gals that have candida.
Okay.
Because fermented foods typically will feed the candida or fungal overgrowth in the gut. So that's the only subset that
And you figure that out from stool test.
from soup in your poop.
Okay, cool. Because I'm going to do that.
Well, there is like a spit test
Interesting.
that I've heard of. I don't know if it works well, but it's like you spit in water
Okay.
and then you see if it floats or something. I don't know. I'm sure if we Google Candida spit test will see how to do it, but I don't know if there's any like validity to it. Validity.
There we go.
Girl, yes.
Wow, I'm the one correcting for one.
Look at you. Yeah. So yeah, that's the only group that if you notice that you feel like more bloated from it or discomfort, or you get like headaches or brain fog, then that'll just give you a clue like, oh snap, I may have some fungal issues.
Going off bloating, do you have three, or I don't know, like an example of like your top 3 foods that you know are like big bloat causers or something like that?
Causers, yeah. Cruciferous veggies and beans, like if you eat those in high quantities and you don't have a lot of enzymes or digestive capacity, like that can cause bloat. Carbonated drinks will usually make people feel bloated, but just temporarily. It's not like something that will, linger for days and days. And then other foods that cause bloat. I mean, well, also if you find that you feel bloated after you eat like a higher fat meal, that could actually be a liver issue because your liver is having a hard time emulsifying the fats. So even bloating has a root cause, guys. I know. But like beans, if for a lot of people, like if you're not used to eating beans and then you just start adding them back into your diet, that can cause some temporary bloating.
Okay.
Anything that has like high fiber. So if you find that you're coming from like a very low fiber diet and you're working on increasing your fiber, if you go too fast, that will cause some bloating. And then obviously, like fried foods, those will typically cause bloat. But it's usually more of like the higher fiber foods. If people have a sensitivity to them, that will trigger it, or the high fatty foods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
That's something good to know. Because we get a lot of people complaining about bloating.
Yeah. So when people are like, I'm bloated, I don't know what to do, I would ask them, take note of when you bloat, like create like a symptom tracker, because for a lot of people, like it's either going to be they can't digest their fats well, so that's going to cause like heaviness and bloating afterwards. And then they'll be able to pinpoint it if they're like, okay, I had like carbonara because that's like very rich and creamy and it had like bacon in it or whatever, and I was bloated from that. That could be like, okay, well, you had a hard time digesting the fats, so that's why you're bloated. Or if you're like, oh man, I just had like a cauliflower rice veggie stir fry and I'm bloated, then it would be, from the cruciferous veg.
Carbonara sounds good.
And I'm so hungry right now. And after this episode.
Okay. Another listener question we have: best snack for energy during busy work days?
Yes. So I say anything protein and high fiber or a healthy fat. Some of my favorites are chomp sticks. Have you tried those?
We're big chomps people.
Yep.
Amanda stores them in her desk.
Very good.
I sneak on over and I'm like, beef stick time?
Yep. Beef sticks all the way. Chomps are epic. And then there's the only protein bar that I like eating is the Bulletproof collagen protein bars. Have you heard of those?
I've never heard of those.
No.
Yeah, they have collagen and MCT oil in them. And I like them because they are essentially keto. So they're like zero sugar, zero fats. I like to suggest having a lot of your complex carbs in like a meal, lunch and dinner, and then your snacks and your breakfast should be more fiber and protein forward, because those are what's going to help you keep the most steadiest blood sugar levels throughout the day. So that's not to say that like, having popcorn as a snack is bad. You just don't want to have it by itself. So you would want to have maybe like a Bulletproof collagen bar and then the popcorn, so that you don't have as an exaggerated blood sugar spike, or, like an apple with nut butter. So if you are going to have something like a fruit that's higher starch, so like a banana, for example, you always want to pair it with a chomp stick or a handful of pistachios or a nut butter of sorts. And that's way it's a little bit more balanced. But I always say when in doubt, my favorite duo is a chomp stick and a Bulletproof bar. Eat that, and that's for sure going to hold you over until your next meal.
Great.
Yeah.
Chomp stick, bullet bar. Bulletproof bar?
Bulletproof. Yeah. Bulletproof
Where do you get
bar.
them?
Well, Whole Foods used to sell them, but I don't know if they do anymore. So you could just get them from Amazon.
Okay, Amazon. Got it.
You guys just skipped over me.
What did you say?
I tried to say sweet and I said queet.
I totally missed that.
Me too.
I hope on the camera it's like queet, and then it's you just being like this, and then we're just chatting. Queet.
Literally.
Oh my God. All right.
That's funny.
You want to take the next one?
All right, next one. What are your favorite Chicago eats? These can be bougier restaurants or fast food spots.
Oh yes, I'm the biggest foodie you'll ever meet.
Heck yeah.
I don't post on Instagram all the time, but when I do, I always try to add in a like, here's what I would recommend to order from this place or that place because I just love dining out so much. So some of my current favorites, have you guys been to Tradita yet?
No.
Ooh, it's in the St. Regis Hotel. So Tradita and
oh my God,
Miru.
a patient was just telling me about this.
Yes.
And the St.
it
Regis
is
Hotel.
so yummy and a really good date spot.
Okay.
Tradita is a really good date spot.
Noted.
Miru I like for their sushi.
Is Tradita, is it hard to get reservations?
Kind of,
Okay.
yeah. But I will say, like, if you go on Open Table, like an hour before you want to go out, there a lot of times there's cancellations. But that's more for people where you're like, go by the seat of your pants, you know?
But that's me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love all the places in Greektown, like Athena. Have you guys ever been to Toxim up in Wicker Park?
No.
Yes, I have.
Yes.
I loved it.
Authentic Greek food. I love it. I'm a Greek lover. I love Greek food. I love Greek men. I love just Greek everything. My husband is 50% Greek, so he falls into that category. Thank you, Lord.
I feel.
If you guys have never tried this Greek liqueur called Mastika, you are missing out. It actually has
I
gut.
have
You
had it.
have? Do
I
you
was
like
in
it?
Greece this past year, so we did a whole like
All the
tasting and like
things.
so good.
Yes. Yeah. So Mastika, they have them at all the Greek places. Like even Avli has it. And it has been studied to show that it helps suppress H. pylori, which is a really common like gut infection that can cause ruckus for people. But it tastes delicious. And I'm like, all right, if it has gut health benefits, I'm going to chug this.
Let's
you know?
do it.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Like I love Trivoli Tavern. I love Bavette's Guilt Bar. Oh my gosh, I'm such a foodie.
Oh, that combo.
Whenever I'm
yeah.
craving butter, I just go to Bavette's.
Yes. Yeah.
So good.
And then, you know, for like healthy grab and go, Sweet Greens, Foxtrot, Protein Bar.
We have a kava now. Have you had kava yet?
I haven't had kava yet.
Oh, that might be up your alley. It might be up your alley. It's in Wicker Park.
Yeah. I also like to identify as like a bougie grandma sometimes. And I love RL. It's connected to like the Ralph Lauren store.
Oh,
It is so cozy. Oh my gosh.
cute.
Like I love it.
I love it in December. They do,
Yes,
like,
that's
cute
when we
Christmas
go.
decorations.
Yep. Yeah. It's just like, it gives you holiday vibes, but it's very like, it's, you know, one of those like expensive restaurants where if you go on a Wednesday, it's like all the elders of Gold Coast are there, you know, for their supper. But I just
cute,
love
though.
it. Yeah. Like their bar is like really small and cozy and cute.
I've been to the Ralph Lauren bar. It's so nice.
Yeah.
That's the bar you're talking
Yep,
about, right?
yep,
Yes.
yep,
Ah,
yeah.
It's so cozy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It is nice.
A martini there. So fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's like ugh, what cuisine you want, and I will rattle off all my favorite. Like we are literally dining out maybe at least once a week.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah,
What if you're on a road trip and you need to
Oh.
stop somewhere?
Chick-fil-A, get those grilled nugs.
Okay.
Mhm.
The grilled nugs.
Oh yeah, get those grilled nugs.
All right.
Yep, and just live it up and get some ranch. Like it's okay. It makes them taste yummy, but
I
it's
actually
like they're
the
not
grilled
breaded.
chicken nugs.
Yeah,
Those
they're
are
good. Yeah.
Mhm.
I actually have like a whole fast food guide that I make for a lot of my clients because a lot of people are like on the road, like traveling or driving places. So Chick-fil-A is up there because they have, you know, the grilled nugs and good salads. Sometimes I'll tell people like just get a burger patty from McDonald's if there's nothing else around
Okay.
with a salad, just because the patty, like they don't grill it with any oil. It's just the beef. It's not the highest quality beef, but at least it's better than getting like a Big Mac or, you know, like all the refined carbohydrates and whatnot. So, you know, it's difficult when you have like very limited options.
Mhm. I'm always like, I fall back on Taco Bell a lot.
Oh, Taco Bell's the best.
They have like that whole like veggie
yeah.
meal,
Yep,
like grab
Yep.
and go.
Their power bowls are really good
Yeah.
too. Yeah, I like their power bowls and their veggie meals. And
Yes.
my kids love their like rice and beans and
Mm.
yeah. So Taco Bell's a good one too.
I don't get the meat there, but I get like the whole veggie menu.
Yeah.
I really like.
Yeah, the meat there
freaks
is
me
like
out.
dog
But like the
food.
spicy potato tacos,
Yes.
so good.
I eat it all.
Yeah. Same.
Like Taco Bell.
Yeah, that's our coming back from the club order.
Oh, for sure.
When I go out, like that's what, you know, you gotta have fun. You can't just eat healthy 24/7.
No.
I mean, I don't even do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have one
Some
more
good ones.
personal question.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to include it in the pod, we don't have to.
No, that's fine.
Because we talked about hormonal acne earlier.
Yes.
So I have been reading about, because I'm turning 30 this year, and like between.
You are not even 30 yet.
I know.
Oh my gosh, girl.
I've lived 100
Praise
lives already.
you.
I've read about between the ages of like 28 and 32, women have this hormonal shift and
Mhm.
it causes some of this like jawline acne. And I've definitely had that in the last year. I also like went off birth control and I went through this whole like shift in
Yeah.
what I was doing hormonally.
Mhm.
And I was reading about like spearmint tea being good for that, but I don't know if you have like hormonal acne specific recs.
Yeah. So if the acne is caused by elevated androgens like testosterone, spearmint tea is like the one studied herb to show that it can help lower androgens and therefore potentially help with the hormonal acne. A lot of it has to do with how your liver metabolizes your hormones. So if you notice that you are getting it around ovulation or before,
it's like luteal phase.
Okay, luteal phase. Yeah, that could potentially be like estrogen metabolism through the liver. So I would give your liver some like extra love during the luteal phase, like the next couple of months. What I would do is I would have all like, don't do high fats for breakfast. I would do more of like a liquid type of diet up until lunch. So, and what that looks like, it could be lemon water before your coffee, then do your coffee, then do bone broth, then do like a pureed veggie soup, and then do like a smoothie, and then do your lunch. I know that's a lot of food before, but you don't have to do all of them. Like just like pick and choose, right? So like either bone broth or a soup or a smoothie, just something that like takes the burden off of your liver, and then resume just like a good high protein, high fiber diet for lunch and dinner, and try that and see. Also, I have a 2-week liver reset that uses that like methodology. I'll just email you. You have to remind me though, because I'm going to forget.
I'll remind you. Thank you.
But that could be something that you could trial and see if that helps. Yeah. Because usually it has to do with how your body is like getting rid of the excess estrogen.
I'm definitely at the point where I'm like, this is diet related. And I feel like that's the only thing that's going to help.
Oh.
I just feel like I don't think there's like a magic pill that's going to do it. I feel like it's more of a gut thing. So.
It is a gut thing. Yeah. So, I mean, you could always try removing the 2 big offenders for 3 weeks, like the dairy and the gluten, and just trial it on yourself and see if you notice any difference. And if not, then it could be something where you got to scoop that poop again and see what's going on and like what has to be cleared out.
We're going to be scooping.
Let's go pooping some hot dogs.
Okay. This leads me to my next question. Where do our listeners find you if they want to work with you?
Yeah. So if you're listening, you could find me. My website is just sarahbakerhealth.com. If you want to work with me through my private practice, you could just book an intake through there. I also see patients at West Loop at Green Circle Wellness, right across the street from you guys. Nice. And then also at Sarvarna, which is up in Lakeview. I see everybody virtually for the most part. Sometimes people, if they really want to get an in-person appointment, I'll make it work. But usually everybody just can chill from the comfort of their own home. Then my Instagram handle is just Sarah Baker Health.
Amazing. Yeah. You'll be hearing from at least me and Hannah.
Yeah. We have some poop appointments to make.
Yep. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast with us today. This is
so insightful. We have a menagerie of tips.
Hannah's new favorite word is menagerie.
Oh, I like that.
She picks a word every week.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, make sure you're following us at Pelvic. I don't know why I said listeners. These freaks.
Yeah.
Pelvic freaks. Make sure you're following us on social media at Pelvic POV.
Check out our website, pelvicpov.co. Check out our merch link. And then also make sure you're following Sarah on Instagram as well.
Heck yeah.
All right.
Sarah, would you like to do the honor of saying bye to the pelvic freaks?
You just say bye, pelvic freaks.
Bye, pelvic freaks.
Bye, pelvic freaks.
Bye.